The fluorescent lights of Mercy General Hospital hummed their endless, mechanical lullaby. 3:15 in the morning, the dead hour, when the living slept and the dying waited. Dr. Eleanor Vaughn pushed her cleaning cart down the corridor of the emergency wing. 54 years old, gray hair pulled back in a regulation bun, scrubs that had seen better decades, hands that trembled slightly when she thought no one was watching. To anyone looking, she was invisible. Just another night shift worker. The woman who mopped the floors, emptied the bedpans, wiped down the gurneys after the real doctors saved lives. They had no idea who she was. The cart's wheels squeaked against the polished linoleum. Squeak, squeak, squeak. A rhythm she knew by heart after 3 years of night shifts. 3 years since she'd answered the job posting. 3 years since she'd walked away from everything she used to be. Ellie stopped at the nurse's station. The young woman behind the desk, Melissa, barely looked up from her phone. "Mrs. Vaughn, there's a spill in exam room 7, and someone threw up in the waiting area again." Not doctor, not even nurse, just Mrs. Vaughn. Ellie nodded. Didn't correct her. What was the point? She turned her cart toward exam room 7. The hallway stretched before her like a tunnel. White walls, white floors, white ceiling. Everything sanitized, everything sterile, everything the same, except for the sounds. A patient coughing in room 3, monitors beeping their steady rhythms, the distant wail of an ambulance siren approaching. Ellie's trained ear caught it all, cataloged it, assessed it. Old habits died hard. She reached exam room 7 and pushed open the door. A puddle of coffee spread across the tile, still steaming, fresh. Ellie grabbed the mop from her cart, dipped it into the bucket. The water was cold. The hospital didn't waste hot water on cleaning crews. She was halfway through mopping when she heard them. Voices, young, male, confident. The sound of men who had never been told no. "I'm telling you, the laceration repair was flawless. Peterson is going to personally recommend me for the cardiothoracic fellowship." Ellie recognized that voice. Dr. Tristan Blackwood, 36 years old, Harvard Medical School. Father was Senator Richard Blackwood. Mother was on the hospital board. Skin like he'd never worked a day outdoors. Hands that had never held anything heavier than a scalpel. The golden boy of Mercy General. Ellie kept mopping, kept her eyes down. Maybe they would walk past. They didn't. The door swung open. Dr. Blackwood strode in, followed by 3 residents, all of them carrying coffee cups from the expensive place down the street, the one that charged $7 for a latte. Blackwood didn't see Ellie at first. He was too busy gesturing with his free hand, demonstrating a surgical technique to his entourage. Then he noticed her. His eyes flicked over her like she was part of the furniture, the mop bucket, the cleaning cart, the old woman on her knees. He took a sip of his coffee, made a face. "Too much foam," he said to no one in particular. Then he turned, extended his arm, and dumped the entire cup onto the floor Ellie had just cleaned. The coffee splashed across the white tile, dark brown liquid spreading like a stain. Some of it hit Ellie's scrubs, hot against her shin. The 3 residents froze. One of them, a young woman with kind eyes, looked horrified. Blackwood smiled. Not cruel, worse than cruel, indifferent. "Nurse," he said. He didn't know her name, didn't care. "Clean this up. That's what you're good for." He said it casually, like commenting on the weather, like she wasn't even human enough to be insulted. The residents laughed, nervous, uncomfortable, but they laughed. Blackwood walked out, his shoes tracking coffee across the clean floor. The residents followed. The young woman glanced back once. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something. She didn't. The door swung shut. Ellie stayed on her knees. The coffee was soaking into her scrubs now, hot, sticky, the smell of it sharp in the small room. Her hands were shaking. Not from age, not from weakness. From the effort it took not to stand, not to speak, not to grab doctor. Tristan Blackwood by his pristine white coat and teach him a lesson his Ivy League professors never could. But she didn't. She dipped her mop back into the bucket, squeezed out the excess water, began cleaning the coffee again. The tremor in her hands was worse now. She gripped the mop handle tighter, focused on the mechanical motion, back and forth, a flash. Not in the room, in her mind. Sand, not linoleum, heat, not fluorescent lights. The smell of burning diesel instead of hospital disinfectant. A voice screaming, "Medic! We need a medic!" Ellie blinked. The flash was gone. She was back in exam room 7, back on her knees, back in her invisible skin. She finished mopping. The night crawled forward for 4:30 a.m. Ellie was restocking supply closets on the second floor when the ambulance arrived. She heard it before she saw it. The siren cutting through the pre-dawn silence. Urgent. Fast. Then voices over the hospital intercom. Trauma activation. All personnel to the emergency bay. Trauma activation. Ellie abandoned her cart, moved toward the emergency wing. Not running. She wasn't supposed to be there, but she needed to see. Old habits. She reached the observation area just as the paramedics wheeled the patient through the doors. It was chaos. The patient was a man, late 60s, thin, weathered. His clothes were ragged, torn, stained with blood and dirt. Homeless. That's what everyone would assume. But Ellie saw other things. The way his boots, though worn, were military issue. Desert tan, the kind issued to special operations. The tattoo on his forearm, partially visible through the torn sleeve. An eagle, globe, anchor, Marine Corps. This man wasn't just homeless, he was a veteran. The paramedics were shouting vitals. GSW to the abdomen. Blood pressure 70/40, heart rate 140. We've got 2 large bore IVs running wide open. He's been coding on and off for the last 10 minutes. Gunshot wound. Not an accident, not random violence. This man had been executed. They wheeled him into Trauma Bay 1. Dr. Blackwood appeared, pulling on gloves, taking charge. "What's the story?" he demanded. The lead paramedic, a grizzled man named Torres, rattled off details. Found him in an alley off Michigan Avenue. Anonymous 911 call. Single GSW, lower right quadrant. Entry wound only. No exit. Bullet still in there. He was conscious when we arrived, kept trying to tell us something, couldn't make it out. Then he crashed. Name? No ID, no wallet, nothing, just a John Doe. Blackwood's face tightened. Great. Another indigent taking up resources. Torres bristled. He's a patient, Doc, and he's DING. Then let's not waste time. Blackwood turned to his team. Get a trauma panel. Type and cross for 6 units. Portable x-ray. And somebody call surgery. If he survives the next hour, he's going to need an OR. The team moved. Fast. Efficient. But Ellie watched Blackwood, saw the way he approached the patient, the way he looked at the ragged clothes, the dirt, the smell. He'd already decided this man wasn't worth saving. Ellie's hands gripped the observation window. She shouldn't interfere, shouldn't get involved. But she couldn't look away. They cut off the patient's shirt. Ellie saw the wound, lower right abdomen. The bullet had entered just above the hip, small caliber, maybe a .22 or .25, professional hit, close range, the kind meant to cause internal damage without making noise. Someone had wanted this man to die slowly. "X-rays up," one of the residents called out. Blackwood studied the image on the monitor, frowned. Bullets lodged near the renal artery. Could be nicking it. That would explain the continued bleeding. He straightened. "We need to get him stable enough for CT. I want to see exactly where that bullet is before we operate." "Doctor," Torres said, "he doesn't have time for CT. His pressure's dropping, 60/30 now." "I'm aware of his vitals," Blackwood snapped, "but I'm not opening him up blind. We wait for imaging. He'll be dead by then. That's not your call to make." Torres opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, shook his head, walked away. Ellie watched the monitor. The patient's blood pressure continued to drop. 55/28, 50/25. He was bleeding out internally. Every second they waited, more blood was filling his abdominal cavity. She looked at Blackwood. He was reviewing the chart, unhurried, methodical, more concerned with protocol than the dying man in front of him. Ellie's jaw tightened. Then the patient moved. His eyes fluttered open, glassy, unfocused, but conscious. His hand came up, trembling, reaching. One of the nurses leaned in. "Sir, can you hear me? We're trying to help you." The patient's lips moved. No sound came out. The nurse looked at Blackwood. "Doctor, I think he's trying to say something." Blackwood glanced over. "He's delirious. Ignore it." But the patient kept reaching, his hand grasping at air, desperate. Ellie couldn't stop herself. She left the observation area, pushed through the doors into the trauma bay. "Ma'am," a nurse protested, "you can't be in here." Ellie ignored her, moved to the patient's side. Up close, she could see his face clearly, weathered, scarred. But his eyes were lucid, aware. He saw her, focused on her. His hand found hers, gripped it, surprisingly strong. "Mrs. Vaughn!" Blackwood's voice was sharp. "Get out of my trauma bay, now!" The patient pulled Ellie closer, his lips at her ear. He whispered 3 words. "White Witch, Afghanistan." Ellie's blood turned to ice. No one had called her that in 20 years. No one in this hospital knew that name. No one should know. The patient's other hand moved, fumbled at his torn pants pocket, pulled something out, a small object, dark, the size of a quarter, an SD card. He pressed it into Ellie's palm. His fingers closed hers around it. "Keep safe," he breathed. "They're coming. Aegis. They know." Then his eyes rolled back. His hand went limp. The monitor screamed. "Flatline." "He's coding," a nurse shouted. "Start compressions." Someone jumped on the bed, started CPR. Ellie stepped back. The SD card was in her closed fist, hot against her palm. Blackwood was suddenly in her face. "What did you do? Did you touch him? Did you contaminate my sterile field?" "He was trying to tell me something," Ellie said, her voice quiet, steady. "He was dying, and you shouldn't be here." Blackwood turned to security. "Get her out, now." 2 guards took Ellie's arms, guided her toward the door. She didn't resist, didn't fight. Behind her, the medical team was working. Compressions, medications, defibrillation. But Ellie knew that man was already dead, had been dead before the ambulance arrived. He just refused to die until he delivered his message. The guards escorted her to the hallway, released her. "Stay out of the trauma bays, Mrs. Vaughn," one of them said. Not unkind. "You know the rules." Ellie nodded, watched them walk away. She opened her hand, looked at the SD card, small, black, unmarked. What was on it? And who was Aegis? More importantly, how did that dying man know her call sign? She slipped the card into her pocket, hidden, safe. She needed to think. But first, she needed to see if they could save him. Ellie returned to the observation window, watched. The compressions continued. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. Blackwood called it at 4:52 a.m. Time of death 04:52. Somebody bag him and tag him. John Doe. Notify the medical examiner. He stripped off his gloves, dropped them in the bin. "What a waste of resources," he muttered. Torres, the paramedic, was still there, his face red. "That man was a Marine, Doc. Show some respect." "That man was a nobody," Blackwood said coldly. "No name, no insurance, no family. He died the way he lived, alone and worthless." Torres took a step toward him. The other paramedics held him back. Blackwood walked away, didn't look back. Ellie stood at the window, watching them cover the body with a white sheet. The man had known her name, her real name, the one she'd buried 20 years ago. He'd given her something worth dying for. And he'd warned her. They're coming. Ellie's hand went to her pocket, felt the hard edge of the SD card. She needed to know what was on it. But first, she had a more immediate problem. Director Graham Sterling was walking toward her, his face grim. "Mrs. Vaughn," he said. "My office, now." Sterling's office was on the 3rd floor, small, windowless, filled with filing cabinets and the smell of stale coffee. He gestured to a chair. Ellie sat. Sterling settled behind his desk, rubbed his face. He looked exhausted. "Dr. Blackwood has filed a formal complaint," he said without preamble. "He says you interfered with a trauma case, contaminated a sterile field, potentially compromised patient care." "The patient was trying to communicate," Ellie said. "He had information." "He was dying," Sterling interrupted. "And you're not medical staff. You're environmental services. Your job is to clean, not to treat patients." "I wasn't treating him. You were where you shouldn't be." Sterling sighed, pulled out a form. "Mrs. Vaughn, this isn't the first time. You've been flagged before, for being in restricted areas, for offering medical opinions to physicians, for overstepping your authority." Ellie said nothing. "Doctor, Blackwood wants you fired," Sterling continued. "Immediately. And honestly, I don't have much choice. You violated hospital policy in front of witnesses." "That man was a veteran," Ellie said quietly. "He deserved respect. He deserved someone to listen." "I agree." Sterling's voice softened. "But it's not your job to listen. I'm sorry, Mrs. Vaughn. I have to let you go, effective immediately." He pushed a form across the desk. Termination paperwork. Ellie stared at it. 3 years. 3 years of being invisible, of hiding, of trying to be small. And it ended like this. She stood, didn't sign the form. "I need to get my things," she said. "Of course, security will escort you." Sterling stood as well. "For what it's worth, you've been a good employee. I wish things were different." Ellie nodded, turned toward the door, then stopped. "Director Sterling," she said, "that patient, the John Doe. When the medical examiner does the autopsy, have them check his dog tags. He was military, special operations, I think. He deserves to be identified, to have a proper burial." Sterling looked at her for a long moment. "I'll make sure of it," he said quietly. Ellie left his office. The security guard was young, apologetic. He walked her to her locker. It took 30 seconds to empty. A change of clothes, a photo of her daughter, her father's old stethoscope still wrapped in its case. She'd never used it here, never even taken it out. She put everything in a small cardboard box. The guard escorted her to the employee entrance. It was raining outside. Cold October rain, the kind that soaked through clothes in seconds. Ellie stood under the overhang, held her cardboard box, looked out at the parking lot. Her car was at the far end. A 15-year-old Honda Civic, rusted, dented, but it ran. She took a breath, felt the SD card in her pocket. The dying man's last words echoed in her mind. "They're coming. Aegis. They know. Who was coming, and what did they know?" Ellie stepped out into the rain. The water was cold, immediate. Within seconds her hair was plastered to her skull, her clothes soaked through. She walked across the parking lot, each step deliberate. She didn't run, didn't hurry. Dignity. She'd keep that at least. She reached her car, fumbled with the keys, unlocked it, got in, placed the cardboard box on the passenger seat. She sat there, engine off, rain drumming on the roof, the windows fogging from her breath. Ellie pulled out the SD card, looked at it in the dim light. What secrets did it hold? Why had a dying man given it to her? And how had he known who she really was? She needed answers. But first, she needed to get home, needed to dry off, needed to think. Ellie started the car. The engine turned over. Rough but reliable. She was about to put it in reverse when she saw them. 2 men standing near the emergency entrance, not staff, not visitors. They wore dark suits, expensive, professional, but they moved wrong, stood wrong, military, or former military. And they were watching her car. Ellie's hand froze on the gear shift. One of them pulled out a phone, made a call. His eyes never left her vehicle. The second man started walking toward her. Ellie's heart rate spiked. They know. The man was 50 feet away, 40, 30. Ellie slammed the car into reverse, gunned it. The tires screeched. The car shot backward. The man broke into a run. Ellie shifted to drive, punched the accelerator. The old Civic lurched forward, not fast, but fast enough. In her rearview mirror, she saw the man stop, pull out his phone. The second man was running to a black SUV parked in the fire lane. Ellie took a hard left out of the parking lot. The tires squealed. She merged onto the street. Light traffic. Dawn was breaking. Gray light bleeding into the sky. Behind her headlights, the black SUV. They were following her. Ellie's hands tightened on the wheel. Her mind raced. She couldn't go home. They would follow her there. Probably already knew her address. She couldn't go to the police. And say what? That men in suits were following her? That a dying man gave her a mysterious SD card? She needed help, needed someone she could trust. But she'd been alone for 20 years. She'd cut ties with everyone from her old life. Deliberately, carefully, she was on her own. The SUV was gaining, getting closer. Ellie took a right, then a left, trying to lose them in the early morning traffic. But the SUV stayed with her, professional, persistent. She was running out of options. Then she heard it, faint at first, distant, a sound that didn't belong on a Chicago street at 5 in the morning. Thump, thump, thump. Ellie's eyes went to the rearview mirror, to the sky beyond the pursuing SUV. Two black shapes emerging from the gray dawn clouds. Military helicopters, no markings, matte black paint. And they were descending, fast, straight toward the street behind her. The SUV following Ellie suddenly swerved, pulled to the side of the road. The helicopters dropped lower. The sound was deafening now. Thump, 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 thump. Ellie slowed her car, confused, terrified. What was happening? The lead helicopter touched down in the middle of the intersection behind her, right on the asphalt. Traffic screeched to a halt. The second helicopter landed beside it. The doors opened before the rotors even slowed. 6 men emerged from each bird. 12 total, full tactical gear, moving with precise, lethal grace. Navy SEALs. Ellie knew the way they moved, the diamond formation, the way they scanned sectors, the way they owned space. The men from the black SUV were getting out, hands going inside their jackets. The SEALs saw them, reacted, weapons up, aimed. "Federal agents, drop your weapons. Hands where we can see them." The men from the SUV froze, hands slowly coming out empty. The lead SEAL, a massive man with a beard and a scar through his eyebrow, moved toward the SUV. 2 of his team stayed with him. The rest fanned out, securing the perimeter. Ellie watched through her rearview mirror, unable to move, unable to process. The bearded SEAL reached the black SUV, looked inside, pulled out a phone, made a call. Then he turned. His eyes scanned the street, searching. Found Ellie's car. He started walking toward her, 3 of his teammates with him. Ellie's breath caught. Her hand went to the door handle. "Ready to run!" The SEAL reached her car, knocked on the window, gently. Ellie's hand trembled. She rolled down the window. The SEAL bent down. His face was hard, weathered, but his eyes were concerned. "Dr. Eleanor Vaughn?" he said. His voice was deep, rough. Ellie stared at him. "How do you know my name?" "Ma'am, I'm Commander Marcus Morrison. Navy SEAL Team 3. He glanced at the men being detained by his team. "Those men following you work for a private military contractor called Aegis. They're very interested in you, or more specifically, in what you're carrying." The SD card. They knew about the SD card. "Ma'am," Morrison continued, "we need to get you somewhere safe, right now. Will you come with us?" "I don't understand," Ellie said, her voice shaking. "Why are you here? How did you find me?" Morrison's expression softened, just slightly. "Because 20 years ago you saved my life," he said, "and we've been watching over you ever since." Ellie's world tilted. She looked at his face, really looked. The scar through his eyebrow, the shape of his jaw, the blue eyes, and she was somewhere else. Afghanistan, a tent, a young man bleeding out on a table. "Morrison," she whispered. He smiled, tired, grateful. "Yes, ma'am. And right now we need to move. More Aegis contractors are en route. My team will handle them, but you need to come with me. Where? Naval Station Great Lakes. There's someone who needs to see you, someone who asked for you specifically. Morrison straightened. Ma'am, I know you just lost your job. I know you're scared. But I promise you, we're the good guys, and we need Angel. That name, the name she hadn't heard in 2 decades. Angel. Ellie looked at the cardboard box on her passenger seat, her whole life in a box. Then she looked at Morrison, at the helicopters, at the men being detained. The dying veteran's words came back to her. They're coming. They already had. Ellie opened her car door, stepped out into the rain. Okay, she said. Let's go. Morrison's face broke into a grin. He turned to his team. Package is secure. Fall back to the birds. We're wheels up in 2. The SEALs moved. Smooth, efficient, like a machine. Morrison took Ellie's arm, guided her toward the lead helicopter. The rotor wash was incredible. Rain became horizontal. The noise was deafening. They helped her into the troop compartment. The seat was canvas, uncomfortable, familiar. Morrison climbed in beside her, handed her a headset. Put this on, ma'am. Ellie pulled on the headset. The world became muffled. Then Morrison's voice came through, clear and close. Angel, this is Morrison. You okay? She nodded. Morrison keyed the radio. Pilot, we're go. Wheels up. Get us out of here before Chicago PD arrives. The helicopter lurched, lifted. The street fell away. Through the open door, Ellie could see Mercy General Hospital in the distance, getting smaller, her car, her job, her quiet, invisible life, all of it falling away. The helicopter banked hard, accelerated. Morrison was watching her. Ma'am, we have about 40 minutes of flight time. I need to brief you. It's complicated. Ellie took a breath, steadied herself. Start with the man who died, the veteran. Who was he? Morrison's face darkened. His name was Robert Carter, former Marine Force Recon. After he retired, he worked as a contractor, Black Ops, classified stuff. 3 months ago, he uncovered something, evidence of massive corruption, defense contractors stealing billions, falsifying reports, getting soldiers killed with faulty equipment. Aegis, Ellie said. Yes, ma'am. Aegis Corporation. They're one of the biggest military contractors in the world, and they're dirty. Carter had proof, financial records, communications, everything. He stored it on that SD card. Ellie's hand went to her pocket, felt the hard edge of the card. Why give it to me? Because Aegis has people everywhere, police, FBI, even some military. Carter couldn't trust anyone. So he did his research, found someone with a record of integrity, someone who couldn't be bought, someone who once saved 6 dying soldiers without asking for permission or recognition. Morrison paused. He found the White Witch. And when your military records were declassified 3 months ago, he found Eleanor Vaughn. He knew you worked at Mercy General. He knew you worked nights. So when Aegis tried to kill him, he dragged himself to your hospital, stayed alive just long enough to get that card into your hands. Ellie felt tears sting her eyes. He died to deliver evidence. Yes, ma'am. He was a hero. And now you're the only person with proof of what Aegis is doing. What do they want to do to me? Morrison's voice was grim. Retrieve the card. By any means necessary. That's why we extracted you. That's why you're coming with us. Ellie looked out the helicopter door. The city was behind them now. Open land ahead. Lake Michigan glinting in the early morning light. You said someone asked for me. Who? Morrison's expression changed, became softer, almost reverent. General William Ashford, commander of SOCOM Forward. He's the one who's been investigating Aegis. And ma'am, he's been shot. Assassination attempt. He's at Great Lakes now. Critical condition. The surgeons there say he might not make it. Ellie's medical training kicked in. What are his injuries? Shrapnel to the chest, near the subclavian artery. They're afraid to operate. Say one wrong move and he bleeds out. Then why do they need me? I'm not a surgeon. Morrison looked at her, his blue eyes intense. Because General Ashford knows your record, knows what you did in Afghanistan. He said if anyone can save him, it's Angel. He gave explicit orders. If something happened to him, we were to find you, protect you, and bring you to him. The helicopter began to descend. Through the windscreen, Ellie could see a military base, buildings, runways, naval station, Great Lakes. "Ma'am," Morrison said quietly, "I know you've been hiding for 20 years. I know you left the military for a reason, but we need you. General Ashford needs you. And honestly, the entire operation to take down Aegis needs you. Without that SD card, without someone to protect it, hundreds of soldiers will keep dying. Billions will keep being stolen." He paused. "Will you help us?" Ellie thought about the dying man, Robert Carter, a Marine who'd sacrificed everything to expose corruption. She thought about her job at Mercy General, mopping floors, being invisible, being less than she was. She thought about Dr. Blackwood, his indifference, his contempt, and she thought about the 20-year-old kid on a table in Afghanistan, the one whose heart she'd held in her hand. Who'd become Commander Morrison? She looked at him. "I'll help," she said. Morrison smiled. Relief washed over his face. "Thank you, ma'am." The helicopter touched down. The doors opened. And Dr. Eleanor Vaughn, call sign Angel, stepped back into the war she'd thought she'd left behind. The sound grew louder. Thump, 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 thump. Ellie sat frozen in her car. Rain streamed down the windshield, the cardboard box on the passenger seat, her hands on the steering wheel, but her eyes were locked on the sky. The helicopters descended through the storm, low, fast. The kind of approach that wasn't requesting permission, the kind that assumed it. Thump, 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 thump. The sound wasn't just noise anymore. It was vibration, physical. Ellie felt it in her chest, in her bones. The windows of her car rattled. The steering wheel hummed under her hands. Around the parking lot, other cars were reacting. Alarms triggered by the rotor wash, lights flashing, horns blaring. Inside the hospital, faces appeared at windows. Doctors, nurses, patients, all of them staring upward. The helicopters weren't slowing down. They were landing. Right here, right now. In the middle of the hospital parking lot, Ellie's breath caught. She knew these birds. UH-60 Blackhawks. Modified. The kind that didn't appear on civilian flight manifests. The kind that inserted special operations teams into places that officially didn't exist. The lead helicopter touched down first. 50 feet from Ellie's car, the rotor wash exploded outward. Rain became horizontal. Sheets of water blasted across the pavement. Ellie's car rocked on its suspension. The second helicopter landed 20 feet to the right. Perfectly synchronized. Military precision. The rotors were still spinning, still screaming. The noise was deafening even through the car windows. Then the doors opened. 6 men emerged from the first helicopter. They didn't wait for the rotors to slow. They jumped out while the blades were still cutting the air at full speed. Fearless, trained. 6 more from the second, 12 in total. They wore full tactical gear, black. No insignia, no unit patches, plate carriers loaded with magazines, sidearms on their thighs, combat boots that hit the wet pavement with purpose. Navy SEALs. Ellie knew the way they moved, the diamond formation, the way they scanned sectors, the way every movement was economical, purposeful, the way they owned space. These weren't regular military, these were Tier 1 operators. The hospital's automatic doors burst open. Security guards spilled out, 3 of them, overweight, undertrained. Hands fumbling for their radios. One of them, brave or stupid, stepped toward the lead SEAL. Sir, you can't land here. This is private property. You need authorization. You need to—" The SEAL didn't even look at him, just raised one hand, a gesture so absolute, so commanding, that the security guard stopped mid-sentence. The SEAL kept walking. His team fanned out behind him. 6 moved to secure the perimeter. 6 stayed with their commander. They weren't here for the guards. They were looking for someone. The lead SEAL was a big man, 6'3", maybe 6'4", 240 pounds of muscle, beard, buzz cut, a scar through his left eyebrow. He carried himself like violence was just another tool in his kit. Available, controlled, ready. He scanned the parking lot. His eyes moved with the efficiency of a targeting computer, dismissing, searching, hunting. Then those eyes found Ellie's car, found her, and locked on. He started walking, straight toward her. The other SEALs followed, water splashing under their boots. The rain didn't slow them, didn't matter to them. Ellie's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The SEAL reached her car, stopped, looked down at her through the rain-streaked window. For 3 seconds, neither of them moved. Then he raised his hand, knocked on the glass, not aggressive, almost gentle. Ellie's hand found the door handle, pulled. The door opened. Rain poured in. Cold. Immediate. Ellie stepped out. Her legs felt disconnected from her body. She stood there in her soaked scrubs, her gray hair plastered to her skull. A 54-year-old woman holding a cardboard box. The SEAL was even bigger up close. He towered over her. But he wasn't looking down at her with contempt. He was looking at her with something else entirely. Recognition, respect, and something that looked almost like relief. He took 2 steps back, squared his shoulders. His heels snapped together. Then Commander Marcus Kincaid did something that silenced the entire hospital parking lot. He saluted, a crisp, parade ground regulation salute. "Ma'am," he said. His voice was deep, gravelly, loud enough to carry over the helicopter rotors. "Request permission to approach." Behind him, all 11 SEALs snapped to attention, saluted in unison. By now, half the hospital was at the windows. Doctors, nurses, staff, patients who could walk, all of them watching. Dr. Blackwood was there. Ellie could see him in the emergency entrance, his face pale, confused. Director Sterling was beside him, his mouth open. Ellie looked at the SEAL commander, at the men behind him, at the helicopters with their rotors still spinning. She should say something. She tried. Her voice came out as a whisper. Permission granted. Kincaid dropped his salute, stepped forward. His eyes never left hers. "Dr. Eleanor Vaughn," he said, former call sign Angel. "United States Army, combat medic, 82nd Airborne Division, 3 tours of duty, Iraq and Afghanistan. Honorable discharge 20 years ago." Ellie's breath stopped. No one here knew that. She'd buried it, changed her name slightly, moved, started over. "How did you—" "The military doesn't forget its angels, ma'am," Kincaid said. His voice softened, just slightly. "I'm Commander Marcus Kincaid, SEAL Team 3, call sign Reaper." He paused. "You knew me as Specialist Morrison back in Afghanistan. I took my stepdad's name after he adopted me during recovery. But I never forgot you." Morrison. The name hit Ellie like a punch. She stared at his face, the scar through the eyebrow, the shape of his jaw, the blue eyes. And she was somewhere else. Afghanistan. Forward Operating Base Sentinel, July 2004. The heat hit like a physical thing, 120 degrees. The air shimmered. Everything was the color of dust. Ellie was 34. Her uniform was stained with sweat and blood. Not her blood. Never her blood. She'd been in country for 8 months, attached to the 82nd Airborne as their senior combat medic. She'd seen things, done things, lost count of the lives she'd tried to save, lost count of the ones she couldn't. The forward operating base was small, 50 men, engineers, infantry, special operations teams that came and went like ghosts. That day, one of those teams came back wrong. The explosion happened at 1400 hours, IED massive one. A convoy of 3 vehicles hit it on a desert road 15 kilometers outside the wire, the kind of blast that turned armored vehicles into scrap metal. The call came over the radio. Choppers were already spinning up. "Multiple casualties inbound. Mass casualty situation. All medical personnel to the aid station. This is not a drill." Ellie ran. The aid station was a tent. Canvas walls. Dirt floor. A few cots. Basic equipment. They weren't set up for major trauma. This was supposed to be a quiet sector. The first helicopter landed in a dust storm. They pulled out 4 bodies. Not casualties. Bodies. Already gone. The second helicopter carried the survivors, 3 men, all of them shredded, uniforms in tatters, blood everywhere. 2 were conscious, screaming. 1 was silent, that was worse. They brought the silent one to Ellie. He was young, so young, maybe 22. Baby face under the dirt and blood. Name tape said Morrison. His right leg was mangled below the knee, tourniquet high on the thigh. His chest was covered in shrapnel wounds. His throat had been sliced open by flying metal, and he wasn't breathing. "Flatline," the medic who brought him in shouted. "We lost him in the bird." Ellie looked at the monitor. A systole. No heartbeat, no pulse. She looked at Morrison's face. His eyes were half open. Blue eyes, looking at nothing. The supervising physician, Captain Davis, glanced at Morrison, then at Ellie. "Triage black," Davis said. "Clinical, detached. Focus on the savable ones." He moved to the next patient. Ellie stood over Morrison's body. Triage black. Dead. Not worth the resources. She looked at his face. 22 years old. She thought about his mother, somewhere in America, maybe watching TV, maybe making dinner, not knowing her son was lying on a dirt floor in Afghanistan, not knowing he'd just been declared not worth saving. Ellie's hands moved. She ripped Morrison's vest open, placed her hands on his chest, started compressions. "Vaughn," Davis barked from across the tent. "I said triage black. We don't have time." Ellie ignored him. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The other medics were working on the 2 screaming men, trying to stop bleeding, trying to save limbs. Ellie was alone with Morrison, and Morrison was dead. But she didn't stop. Crack. She felt a rib break under her hands. Kept going. "Vaughn, that's an order." 30 compressions, 2 breaths. "Come on, soldier, come on." Nothing. Ellie looked around, found the crash cart, found the epinephrine, drew it up, slammed it into Morrison's IV port. 30 more compressions. Still nothing. She was losing him. No, she'd already lost him, but she couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. Ellie placed her hands on his chest, felt for the sternum, for the landmarks. Then she did something Captain Davis would court-martial her for. She grabbed a scalpel from the surgical tray, and she cut Morrison's chest open, right there, in a tent, in the dirt, without anesthesia, without proper equipment. She cut through skin, through muscle, through cartilage. Blood welled up. She didn't care. She spread his ribs, reached inside his chest cavity, found his heart. It was still, gray, dead. Ellie wrapped her hand around it and squeezed. Manual cardiac massage. Direct stimulation. The kind of thing you only did in textbooks and Hail Mary situations. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. Come on, Morrison. Come on, kid. Vaughn, Jesus Christ, what are you doing? Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. She felt it. A flutter, weak, uncertain. Then a beat, then another. Morrison's heart started beating in her hand. Ellie held her breath, kept massaging, gently now, encouraging. The heart rhythm steadied, strengthened. On the monitor a blip appeared, then a line. Jagged, irregular, but alive. Ellie carefully withdrew her hand, packed the chest cavity with gauze, started suturing. Her hands were covered in blood. Her uniform soaked with it, but Morrison had a pulse. Captain Davis appeared at her shoulder. His face was white. "You just performed open-chest cardiac massage," he said quietly, "in a field tent, without authorization." "Yes, sir." "That procedure has a 98% failure rate." "Yes, sir." Davis looked at the monitor, at Morrison's steady heartbeat. "But it worked," he said. "Yes, sir." Davis was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Finish closing him up. I'll prep the evac bird." Morrison was evacuated to Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany that night. Ellie never saw him again, never knew if he survived the flight. Never knew if he woke up. She was reprimanded, officially, for exceeding her authority, for performing a procedure without a physician present. Unofficially, word spread. The medic who brought a dead man back to life. The medic who wouldn't quit. The soldiers started calling her Angel, and the special operations teams started asking for her specifically when they went into bad areas. They wanted the medic who didn't give up, the medic who held hearts in her hands and made them beat. The flashback ended. Ellie was back in the parking lot. In the rain, 20 years later. Morrison was standing in front of her. Not Morrison. Kincaid. But the same blue eyes. "You remember," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Ellie's voice came out broken. "They said you died. In Germany. They said the injuries were too severe." Kincaid smiled. It was a tired smile, a smile that had seen too much. "I was in a coma for 6 weeks," he said. "When I woke up, they told me I'd been dead for 4 minutes before you brought me back. 4 minutes, ma'am. You held my heart in your hand and made it beat again." Tears were running down Ellie's face now, mixing with the rain. "I spent the next 20 years looking for you," Kincaid continued. "But you'd vanished, changed your name, went civilian. The military had classified your records for operational security. I couldn't find you, until 3 months ago when they declassified the Afghanistan personnel files. I saw your photo, Eleanor Vaughn, working night shift at a hospital in Chicago." He stepped closer. "Ma'am, I owe you my life. Every mission I've completed, every person I've saved, every terrorist I've stopped, all of it exists because you wouldn't give up on a dead kid in a tent." Behind Kincaid, the other SEALs were watching, silent, respectful. One of them, a massive man, easily 6'7", stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said. His voice was surprisingly gentle for someone his size. "I'm Bear. You fixed my femoral artery in Fallujah when I was 19. Doctor said I'd lose the leg. You saved it." Another SEAL, Hispanic, scar across his cheek. "Rodriguez, ma'am. You talked me through a sucking chest wound on myself while we waited for evac. Stayed on the radio with me for 2 hours, kept me calm." One by one they identified themselves. Davis, Chen, Thompson, Rodriguez. All of them she'd saved. All of them she'd forgotten. But they hadn't forgotten her. Ellie looked at them, these warriors, these men who fought in the shadows, who did impossible things, and they were looking at her like she was the impressive one. "Who's dying?" she asked, her voice steady now, professional. Because if they were here, someone needed help. Kincaid's face grew serious. "General William Ashford," he said. "He was overseeing an operation in Syria. His convoy was hit by an RPG. He took shrapnel to the chest. We evacuated him to Ramstein Air Base in Germany, but he's deteriorating. The surgeons there can't operate. The damage is too complex, too close to major vessels." "Then how can I—" "Because you're not them," Kincaid interrupted. "You're Angel, and General Ashford has one request. He wants the combat medic who saved Reaper Squad. He wants you. And ma'am, he doesn't have much time. We need to leave now." Ellie looked down at herself, at her soaked scrubs, at the cardboard box in her car, at the SD card hidden in her shoe. "I was just fired," she said. "I'm not a doctor. I don't have credentials. Ma'am, with respect, I don't care about credentials," Kincaid said. His voice was firm, kind. "I care about one thing. Can you save him?" Ellie thought about General Ashford, thought about Morrison, thought about all the soldiers she'd saved, all the ones she'd lost, thought about Dr. Blackwood standing in the hospital, the man who'd fired her for trying to save a life, thought about Robert Carter, dead, because no one would listen. She looked at Kincaid. "Where is he?" "Naval Station Great Lakes," Kincaid said. 40 minutes by air. But ma'am, we need to leave now. His vitals are crashing." Ellie glanced at the hospital, at the faces in the windows. Dr. Blackwood was there, watching, his face twisted with confusion and anger. She looked back at Kincaid. "Let's go," she said. Kincaid's face broke into a grin. He turned to his team. "Let's move." Angel's coming with us. The SEALs snapped into motion. Two of them moved to Ellie, offered their arms. Ma'am, the rotor wash is intense. Let us help. Ellie took their arms. Let them guide her across the parking lot toward the lead helicopter. The rain hammered down. The rotors screamed overhead. As they approached the Black Hawk, Ellie saw faces inside. More SEALs. A pilot with night vision goggles pushed up on his helmet, a crew chief checking equipment. They helped her into the troop compartment. The seat was canvas, uncomfortable. Perfect. It felt like home. Kincaid climbed in beside her, handed her a headset. Put this on, ma'am, so we can talk. Ellie pulled on the headset. The world became muffled. Then Kincaid's voice came through, clear and close. Angel, this is Reaper. You okay? She nodded. Kincaid keyed the radio. Pilot, we're go. Wheels up. Direct route to Great Lakes. Don't spare the horses. Copy that. ETA 35 minutes. The helicopter lurched, lifted. The parking lot fell away. Through the open door, Ellie could see Mercy General growing smaller. She could see the cars, the people, the lights. She could see Dr. Blackwood standing in the rain, staring up at the sky. His mouth open. His world clearly not making sense. Getting smaller, smaller, gone. The helicopter banked hard, accelerated. Chicago spread out below them. Skyscrapers, highways. Lake Michigan in the distance, gray and churning. ETA 35 minutes, the pilot's voice came through the headset. Weather's going to be rough. Holding on tight recommended. Copy, Kincaid said. He turned to Ellie. Ma'am, I need to brief you on the patient. Ellie straightened, focused. This was her element. Go ahead. General William Ashford, 58 years old. Excellent health prior to injury, RPG, impact to the vehicle. Shrapnel penetrated the chest cavity. Primary wound is approximately 2 inches inferior to the right clavicle. German surgeons removed what they could, but there's at least one large piece lodged near the subclavian artery. He's been stable for 6 hours, but now he's declining. Vitals? BP dropping. 90/50 last check. Heart rate elevated. 120. Oxygen saturation at 90%. He's bleeding internally, but they can't locate the source. Ellie's mind was already working, running through possibilities. Differential diagnoses. Has he been scanned? CT in Germany showed the shrapnel, but it's too close to major vessels. The surgeons at Ramstein wouldn't touch it, said one wrong move and he bleeds out on the table. So they sent him stateside. Not exactly. Kincaid's face was grim. He refused to stay in Germany, said if he was going to die, it would be on American soil. He was supposed to go to Walter Reed, but during the flight he crashed. They got him back, but barely. The Air Force surgeon said he won't survive another flight to D.C., so they diverted to Great Lakes. It was the closest military facility. They set up a field surgical suite. But, ma'am, their surgeons won't operate. They're afraid. And he asked for me. He did, ma'am. General Ashford knows your record. When the files were declassified, he was the one who authorized the search for you. When he found out you were in Chicago, when he got hit, he gave the order. Get Angel. No matter what. The helicopter shook. Turbulence. The storm was getting worse. Ellie looked out the open door. Rain streaked past. Lightning flickered in the distance. She thought about what Kincaid was describing. Shrapnel near the subclavian artery. Internal bleeding. Vitals crashing. This wasn't a field hospital procedure. This was a surgical nightmare. And they wanted her to do it. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, looked at the screen. A text from an unknown number. We know what Robert Carter gave you. Return it or face consequences. You have 24 hours. Ellie's blood went cold. Another text. This one, a photo. Her daughter, Sarah, walking across the campus of Northwestern University, unaware she was being photographed. A third text. She's very pretty. Would be a shame if something happened. Ellie's hands started shaking. Kincaid noticed immediately. Ma'am, what's wrong? Ellie showed him the texts. Kincaid's face went dark. He keyed his radio. Command, this is Reaper. We have a situation. Angel has been threatened. Her daughter is at Northwestern, Sarah Vaughn, age 22. I need immediate protective detail. Now, a voice crackled back. Copy Reaper, dispatching team. ETA to campus 15 minutes. Not good enough, Kincaid said. Get me local police, campus security, FBI if you have to. I want eyes on her in 5 minutes. Working it. Kincaid looked at Ellie. Ma'am, can you forward those texts to this number? He rattled off digits. Ellie's hands were shaking so badly she could barely work the phone. But she managed. Done. Good. Now listen to me. We're going to protect your daughter. We're going to find whoever sent those texts, and we're going to make them regret threatening an American hero. His voice was cold, absolute. But first, we need you to save the general. Can you do that? Ellie looked at the phone, at her daughter's photo, at the threat. Then she looked at Kincaid. Yes, she said, I can do that. Because that's what soldiers did. They kept going, even when they were scared, even when someone they loved was in danger. They kept going. The helicopter began its descent. Through the rain, Ellie could see lights, a military base, buildings, runways, Naval Station Great Lakes. The pilot's voice crackled through the headset. Landing in 60 seconds. Medical team is standing by. Kincaid looked at Ellie. Ready, Angel? Ellie took a breath, pushed the fear down, locked it away, thought about Morrison, about all the soldiers she'd saved, about the oath she'd taken 30 years ago, to do no harm, to save lives, no matter the cost, no matter what. Ready, she said. The helicopter touched down, the doors opened, and Dr. Eleanor Vaughn stepped into her second war. The rain hit Ellie's face the moment she stepped off the helicopter. Naval Station Great Lakes was a sprawl of gray buildings and wet asphalt. Floodlights cut through the storm like searchlights. Men in uniform were running toward them. Kincaid jumped down beside her, took her arm. This way, ma'am. They ran across the tarmac. The rotor wash from both helicopters created a hurricane of wind and rain. Ellie's scrubs whipped against her body. Her hair tore completely free from its bun. A hangar loomed ahead, massive doors already open. Light spilling out into the darkness. They ducked inside. The noise cut in half. The rain stopped. Ellie stood dripping on concrete, catching her breath. The hangar had been transformed into a field hospital, surgical lights on stands, equipment carts, monitors beeping. A proper operating table in the center, draped in sterile blue. 2 men in Navy medical uniforms were prepping instruments with practiced efficiency. And on the table, barely visible under the harsh lights, lay General William Ashford. Ellie moved toward him. Her tremor was gone, her hands steady, her mind clear. She'd seen dying men before, knew the look, the gray pallor, the shallow breathing, the way the body started shutting down, room by room, turning off the lights one by one. Ashford was dying. But not yet. Not if she had anything to say about it. She reached the table, looked down at him. He was conscious, barely. His eyes were open. Brown eyes. Clouded with pain, but still sharp, still aware, still fighting. He saw her, focused with effort. Angel, he whispered. His voice was weak, wet, blood in his lungs. Ellie touched his hand. His skin was cold, clammy. General, I'm here. Knew you'd come. Each word cost him. Knew Morrison would find you. Save your strength, sir. Don't call me sir. A ghost of a smile. You outrank me where it counts. One of the Navy surgeons stepped forward. Commander rank on his collar, 50s, silver hair, competent hands scarred from years of work. Dr. Vaughn, I'm Commander Patterson. This is Lieutenant Commander Hayes. We'll be assisting. Ellie looked at them, saw respect in their eyes, not doubt, not skepticism, respect. Brief me, she said. Patterson gestured to a monitor showing the CT scan, a ghostly image of Ashford's chest cavity. Shrapnel fragment, right here, he pointed, 2 centimeters long. Irregular shape with what looks like barbed edges. It's lodged between the subclavian artery and the superior vena cava. When he moves, when he breathes, it shifts. We think it's causing a slow arterial bleed, maybe venous too. We can't tell without going in. Why haven't you? Because if we go in blind and that fragment moves wrong, he exsanguinates in 90 seconds. We don't have the capability for vascular repair at that speed. Not here. Ellie studied the scan. The shrapnel was wedged in the worst possible position, between two of the largest blood vessels in the human body. One wrong move and he'd bleed out faster than they could replace the blood. She thought for a moment. REBOA, she said. Patterson blinked. Ma'am? Resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion of the aorta. We put a balloon catheter up through the femoral artery, thread it up into the descending aorta, position it above the diaphragm. If he starts bleeding when we remove the shrapnel, we inflate the balloon. It blocks blood flow to everything below the chest, buys us time to repair the vessel. Patterson hesitated. That's a trauma procedure for massive hemorrhage in the field. We've never done it in a controlled setting. I'm not sure. I've done it, Ellie interrupted. Twice. Both times in worse conditions than this. It'll work. Patterson looked at Hayes. Hayes looked at the general. Ashford's eyes were on Ellie. He nodded. Barely. His lips moved. Do it, he whispered. Ellie turned to Kincaid. I need you to scrub in. You're going to assist. Ma'am, I'm not medical. You can follow orders. You can keep your hands steady under pressure. That's all I need. Scrub in, now. Kincaid didn't hesitate. Yes, ma'am. Ellie looked at Patterson. Get me the REBOA kit. I need a 7 French sheath, arterial line setup, fluoroscopy operational, and someone timing. When I say start the clock, you count down from 3 minutes. Out loud. Clear and loud. Understood? Understood. Good. Let's move. The next 5 minutes were controlled chaos. Ellie scrubbed at the portable surgical sink, iodine soap, up to the elbows. The ritual was burned into her muscle memory. She'd done this in tents, in bunkers, in the backs of trucks racing through hostile territory. This was clean, sterile, temperature-controlled, almost easy. She dried her hands on a sterile towel. Patterson helped her into a surgical gown. Gloves snapped on, double-gloved, the way she'd learned in combat zones. Ellie approached the table. General Ashford was sedated now, intubated. Ventilator breathing for him with mechanical precision. His chest rose and fell with inhuman regularity. Kincaid stood across from her, gowned and gloved. His hands held perfectly steady. The hands of a man who'd done brain surgery on himself to stay alive, who'd stitched his own wounds in the dark. Patterson and Hayes flanked them. Talk to me about his vitals, Ellie said. Hayes watched the monitors. BP 90 over 45. Heart rate 130. Respiratory rate controlled at 16. He's compensating, but barely. I'd say we have 30 minutes, maybe less. He won't last that long, Patterson said quietly. The bleed is getting worse. Look at his hemoglobin. It's dropped 2 points since we got here. Then we work fast. Ellie looked at each of them. Here's how this goes. I insert the REBOA catheter first, get it positioned, verify placement on fluoroscopy, then we go for the shrapnel. If he bleeds, when he bleeds, I inflate the balloon. That gives us 3 minutes, maybe 4 if his heart is strong. In that time, we have to find the source, clamp it, and repair it. After 3 minutes, we have to deflate or he loses his legs to ischemia. After 5 minutes, he loses his kidneys. After 7, he dies. No exceptions. No second chances. Questions? Silence. Good. Let's save a general. Ellie picked up the scalpel. She found the femoral artery in Ashford's right groin. Felt for the pulse. Strong. That was good. His heart was still fighting. She marked the spot with a surgical marker. Small incision, 1 centimeter. The scalpel cut clean. Blood welled up. Ellie suctioned it away immediately. There's the artery. Puncture and dilate. She worked with the precision of someone who'd done this 100 times. The needle went in. First try. The wire fed through. The sheath slid over the wire and into the artery. Catheter. Patterson handed her the Reboa catheter, long, thin, with a deflated balloon at the tip. Ellie threaded it up through the artery, watched the fluoroscopy screen as the catheter snaked up through Ashford's body, through the iliac, through the abdominal aorta, into the descending thoracic aorta. "Position looks good," Hayes said. "Lock it in place." Ellie secured the catheter to Ashford's leg with sutures. "Balloon is ready to inflate on my command. Now we go for the shrapnel." She moved to Ashford's chest. The entry wound was ugly, jagged, crusted with dried blood and German field dressings. "Clean the site." Patterson irrigated the wound. Blood and debris washed away, revealing the torn tissue beneath. There, Ellie could see it. The fragment of metal, dark, irregular, barbed like a fishhook, embedded between two of the largest blood vessels in the human body. One wrong move and Ashford was dead. "Commander Patterson, when I tell you to start the clock, you count down from 3 minutes, loud and clear. Every 15 seconds, understood?" "Understood." "Commander Hayes, watch those vitals like your life depends on it. Any drop in pressure, any change in rhythm, you call it immediately. Don't wait, don't hesitate." "Yes, ma'am." Ellie looked at Kincaid. "Reaper, I need you to hold this retractor. When I say hold, you hold. Don't move, don't flinch, don't breathe heavy. Just hold. Can you do that?" Kincaid's blue eyes met hers, steady, calm. "I've got you, Angel." Ellie took a breath, let it out slowly. This was it. She picked up the forceps. "Let's go fishing." She inserted the forceps into the wound, gently, so gently. The metal tips touched the shrapnel fragment. It shifted. Blood spurted. Dark red. "Arterial." "He's bleeding," Hayes shouted. "BP dropping. 70/30. 60/20. "Inflate the balloon," Ellie commanded. "Start the clock." Patterson's hand moved to the syringe connected to the Reboa catheter, pushed saline into the balloon. It inflated in Ashford's aorta, blocked the blood flow. The bleeding slowed, stopped. "Balloon inflated," Patterson called out. "Starting countdown, 3 minutes. 2:59, 2:58. Ellie's forceps closed on the shrapnel. She pulled. It didn't move. "It's caught on something," she said. Her voice was absolutely calm. "Reaper, retractor, pull back gently. I need to see what's holding it." Kincaid pulled. The tissue spread. The wound opened wider. Ellie could see it now. The shrapnel had a barb, like a fishhook, and it had caught on the wall of the subclavian artery. If she pulled now, she'd rip the artery open. 2:45! "I have to unhook it before I can remove it," Ellie said. "Scalpel, number 15 blade." Patterson placed it in her hand. The world narrowed to a space the size of a quarter. Ellie's entire universe was this wound, this artery, this piece of metal that was killing a man. She cut. Tiny movements, millimeters at a time, separating the barb from the arterial wall. 2:30! The barb came free. "Got it. Pulling the fragment now." Ellie's hand was steady. Absolutely steady. She pulled the shrapnel out of the wound in one smooth motion. It came free. Blood gushed. Dark red. Pulsing. Arterial. "He's bleeding from the subclavian," Hayes yelled. "Pressure's crashing. BP 40/20. 2:15. Clamp!" Ellie's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Vascular clamp. Now!" Patterson slapped it into her hand. Ellie placed the clamp on the subclavian artery, above the tear, below the tear, isolating the injury. The bleeding stopped. 2 minutes. Suture, 5-O-proline, double-armed needle. Her hands moved in a blur, stitching, repairing. The needle went in and out, in and out. Perfect stitches, tight, secure. The way she'd learned in combat, the way she'd practiced on oranges and chicken breasts until she could do it in her sleep. 1:45. The tear was closing. Almost there. 1:30. Last stitch. Ellie tied it off, cut the suture with scissors. 1:15. Clamp coming off. Ellie removed the vascular clamp with steady hands. For 1 terrible second, nothing. Then blood flowed through the artery. Smooth, normal, no leaking. The repair held. 1 minute. Deflate the balloon, Ellie ordered. Patterson released the saline from the syringe. The Rebo balloon deflated. Blood flow returned to Ashford's lower body. 45 seconds. Ellie watched the monitors, watched the blood pressure. It stabilized. 90 over 50, 100 over 60, 110 over 70. 30 seconds. Heart rate dropping. 120, 110, 100, 90. 15 seconds. Ashford's color was improving, the gray pallor fading, pink returning to his skin. 10, 9, 8. Ellie stepped back from the table. 7, 6, 5. The monitors beeped. Steady, strong. The sound of life. 4, 3, 2, 1. Patterson looked up. His face was white. His hands were shaking. "Vitals are stable," he said. His voice was full of awe. Blood pressure 115 over 75. Heart rate 98. Oxygen saturation 100%. Hemoglobin stable. He's going to make it." Silence filled the hangar. Then Hayes whispered, "Jesus Christ." She did it. Ellie pulled off her gloves, dropped them in the biohazard bin. "Close him up," she said. "Standard closure. 3 layers. Watch for infection. He'll need antibiotics, broad spectrum, cefazolin and gentamicin, and keep him sedated for at least 12 hours. That artery needs time to heal without his blood pressure spiking." She walked away from the table. Her legs felt weak. The adrenaline was fading now. The fear for her daughter came rushing back. Kincaid followed her, pulled off his gloves and gown. "Angel," he said. His voice was rough with emotion. I've never seen anything like—" "It's what I do," Ellie said simply. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out with trembling hands. A text from Kincaid's command. "Sarah Vaughn secured, FBI protective custody. Campus police standing by. She's safe." Ellie's knees almost gave out. Kincaid caught her arm. "She's okay?" he asked gently. "She's safe," Ellie whispered. "Thank you. Thank God." Behind them, Patterson and Hayes were closing Ashford's chest, working in silence, still awed by what they'd just witnessed. Kincaid pulled out a satellite phone. "Keyed a number. Package is secure," he said to whoever answered. Angel pulled it off. "General Ashford is stable and expected to make full recovery." "Yes, sir." "Outstanding. We're bringing her back now." "Yes, sir. I'll tell her." He hung up. Looked at Ellie. "That was JSOC Command. Vice Admiral Morrison sends his compliments. Says to tell you that you just saved the future chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he wants to thank you personally." "Later," Ellie said. "First we need to deal with whoever threatened my daughter." "Already done," Kincaid said. He showed her his phone, a message from intelligence. "Texts traced to Aegis Corporation secure server. FBI raid in progress. 7 arrests including CEO Richard Whitmore Sr. Evidence recovered matches data on SD card. Case closed." Ellie stared at the message. "How did you—" "When you forwarded those texts, our intel team traced them. Then they found out about Robert Carter, about the SD card, about the whole conspiracy. Aegis has been embezzling from defense contracts for 5 years. Senator Blackwood's family is dirty. His son knew. The whole thing is coming down." Kincaid smiled. It was a cold smile. "And Angel? They threatened the wrong medic's daughter." Ellie felt something loosen in her chest. The fear, the tension, the weight of carrying evidence that had already killed 1 man. It was over. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now?" Kincaid's smile warmed. "Now we take you home, to Mercy General, because we have some unfinished business there." The flight back to Chicago took 35 minutes. Ellie sat in the helicopter, exhausted. Her scrubs were covered in blood, Ashford's blood, but he was alive. Her daughter was safe. And the men who'd threatened them were in custody. She looked out the open door. The sun was rising. The storm had passed. The sky was turning pink and gold over Lake Michigan. It was beautiful. Kincaid sat beside her, quiet, respectful. Finally he said, "Ma'am, General Ashford asked me to give you something." He pulled an envelope from his vest, handed it to her. Ellie opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten. She recognized the shaky script of someone writing while heavily medicated. Angel, 20 years ago I was a captain. I led the rescue team that extracted you from that tent in Afghanistan. I saw what you did, how you put your body between Morrison and the enemy. How you kept working on him even while bullets were coming through the canvas. I've spent my entire career trying to live up to the example you set that day. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for saving Morrison's life. Thank you for saving every soldier who lived because you refused to give up. You are the truest warrior I've ever known. With deepest respect and gratitude, General William Ashford. Ellie folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope. She didn't trust herself to speak. Kincaid gave her the moment. Then he said, "Ma'am, we're going in loud. Director Sterling gave us permission, said we could make a statement." "What kind of statement?" Kincaid grinned. "You'll see." The helicopter didn't land in the parking lot this time. It landed on the hospital roof, the helipad reserved for emergency medical transports, where everyone could see. The second helicopter touched down beside them. As the rotors slowed, Ellie heard another sound. Engines, heavy engines, military vehicles. She looked over the edge of the roof. 4 Humvees were pulling into the hospital's main entrance, blocking traffic, light bars flashing red and blue. "Full honor detail," Kincaid explained. "You saved a 2-star general. The military doesn't forget that, ever." The helicopter door opened. Kincaid stepped out, extended his hand. Ellie took it, stepped onto the roof of Mercy General Hospital. Below she could see faces, dozens of them, hundreds, pressed against windows, crowding the parking lot, filling the entrance. The entire hospital had stopped to watch. 2 SEALs opened the roof access door. "After you, ma'am," Kincaid said. Ellie walked through, descended the stairs. The SEALs followed. 12 operators in full gear, boots echoing in the concrete stairwell. They emerged into the main lobby. It was packed. Doctors, nurses, staff, security, patients in wheelchairs, visitors, everyone. The crowd parted, made a pathway, silent, waiting. Ellie walked through them, Kincaid at her side, the SEALs behind her. At the far end of the lobby stood Director Graham Sterling. His face was pale, shaken. Beside him, looking like he'd seen a ghost, was Dr. Tristan Blackwood. Kincaid stopped in the center of the lobby, under the skylight, where everyone could see, where every word would carry. "Attention!" His voice boomed. Command voice, the kind that made people stand up straight without thinking. The lobby fell absolutely silent. "I am Commander Marcus Kincaid, United States Navy, SEAL Team 3. I'm here on behalf of Joint Special Operations Command, the United States Department of Defense, and General William Ashford, Commanding Officer of Special Operations Command Forward." He paused. Let that sink in. Let the weight of those names settle on the room. 6 hours ago, General Ashford was critically wounded in a classified operation. The best military surgeons in Europe declared his injuries beyond their capability to treat. They said he would not survive. They said goodbye. Another pause. The general had one request, one name. He wanted Dr. Eleanor Vaughn, former call sign Angel, United States Army combat medic, 82nd Airborne Division, 3 tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. 127 confirmed lives saved under fire, 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, Silver Star for Valor. Honorable discharge 20 years ago. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were looking at Ellie differently now, not the cleaning lady. Something else. Blackwood's face was turning purple. Kincaid continued, "Dr. Vaughn successfully performed a resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion procedure with shrapnel extraction under countdown conditions. 3 minutes. 1 chance. She didn't hesitate. She didn't fail. General Ashford is alive, stable, and expected to make a full recovery." He turned, looked directly at Ellie. Then Commander Marcus Kincaid, Navy SEAL, came to attention and saluted. "On behalf of the United States military and every soldier you've ever saved, thank you for your service, Dr. Vaughn." Behind him, all 11 SEALs snapped to attention, saluted in perfect unison. The lobby erupted in applause, spontaneous, thunderous. People were standing, clapping. Some were crying. But Kincaid wasn't done. He turned to face Blackwood. The applause died down. The tension was immediate. "I understand," Kincaid said, his voice carrying clearly, "that Dr. Vaughn was terminated from this hospital last night, fired, for saving the life of Senator Peterson's son, for performing an emergency thoracostomy without authorization." Blackwood found his voice. "She assaulted a doctor. She practiced medicine without a license. She exceeded her—" "She saved a life," Kincaid interrupted. His voice was cold now, hard. "While you, Dr. Blackwood, misdiagnosed a textbook case of tension pneumothorax, a condition covered in first-year medical school, a condition that would have killed your patient in under 60 seconds if Dr. Vaughn hadn't intervened. How dare you? I have the medical report." Kincaid pulled a folder from his vest. "The official report from the trauma surgeon who took over the case, Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Would you like me to read it aloud?" Silence. "It states, and I quote, 'Patient survival is directly attributed to immediate needle decompression performed by hospital staff prior to my arrival. Without this intervention, patient would have expired within 60 seconds due to cardiac tamponade from tension pneumothorax. The individual who performed this procedure demonstrated expert-level assessment and execution. They saved this patient's life." Kincaid handed the folder to Sterling. Sterling opened it, read. His face went from pale to white to red. Blackwood opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish gasping. That's not... I was following protocol." "You were following your ego," Kincaid said quietly, dangerously. "And a man almost died because of it. And then you fired the person who saved him." He turned to Sterling. "Director Sterling, I have a question. Is this the kind of physician you want representing Mercy General? A man who fires the person who saved his patient's life? A man who values hierarchy over competence? A man who lets his pride kill people?" Sterling looked at Blackwood. "At Ellie, at the hundreds of people watching, at the SEALs standing at attention, at the folder in his hands with the damning report." He made his decision. "Dr. Blackwood," Sterling said, his voice carried across the silent lobby, "you're terminated. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You have 1 hour to clear your office." Blackwood's face went white, then red, then purple. "You can't. My father is... The board will..." "Your father," Sterling said, his voice hardening, "is currently being arrested by the FBI, along with his brother, Senator Richard Blackwood, and several board members of Aegis Corporation, for embezzlement, for fraud, for conspiracy. I received the call 20 minutes ago." He stepped closer to Blackwood. "This hospital answers to patients, doctor, not politicians, not board members, not senators, patients. And you failed yours." He gestured to security. 2 guards stepped forward, took Blackwood's arms. He struggled. "This is outrageous. I'll sue. I'll have your jobs, all of you. My family..." "Your family is going to prison," Sterling said flatly. "You're lucky if all you lose is your job. Now get out of my hospital." They dragged him toward the exit, his expensive shoes squeaking on the polished floor, his face red, spit flying as he screamed threats. The doors closed behind him. The lobby was silent for a moment, and then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then everyone. The applause was deafening. Sterling turned to Ellie, stepped forward, extended his hand. "Dr. Vaughn," he said, "on behalf of Mercy General Hospital, I apologize. Profoundly. You were treated shamefully, fired unjustly, and I'm asking you, begging you, to come back." Ellie looked at him, at the crowd, at Kincaid. "In what capacity?" she asked. "Any capacity you want," Sterling said. "But if I can make a suggestion, we desperately need a director of emergency medicine training, someone who can teach our residents what real medicine looks like, someone who knows how to handle pressure, how to make life or death decisions, how to lead, how to care more about patients than protocols." He paused. "The position comes with a full salary, competitive with attending physicians, full benefits, an office. and the authority to fire any doctor who doesn't meet your standards. Complete autonomy. Ellie almost smiled at that. I'll need to see the contract first, she said. Of course, I'll have it drawn up today. And I want full autonomy. No interference from administration, no board oversight. If I say someone isn't fit to practice, they're gone. Done. And I want a memorial. In this lobby. A plaque with the names of every veteran who works or volunteers at this hospital, past and present. So people remember their service. So people remember that healers come from all backgrounds. Sterling didn't hesitate. I'll have it commissioned this week. Bronze. Prominent placement. Anything else? Yes, Robert Carter, the patient who died this morning. I want a full investigation into his death. Independent toxicology, because he was poisoned, and someone needs to answer for that. Sterling nodded slowly. I'll contact the medical examiner personally. You have my word. Ellie extended her hand. Then I accept. Sterling shook it. The applause erupted again. Kincaid stepped forward, offered his hand. Welcome back, Angel. Ellie shook it. Thank you, Reaper, for everything. We'll be in touch, Kincaid said. JSOC wants you on call for situations like today, when we need someone who can work miracles, if you're willing. I don't work miracles, Ellie said. I just do my job. Ma'am, Kincaid said softly, 20 years ago, you held my heart in your hand and made it beat. If that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. He saluted one last time, then turned and walked toward the doors. His team followed in formation. They disappeared into the morning sunlight. Minutes later, Ellie heard the helicopters lift off. The sound faded. Gone. She stood in the lobby, surrounded by people, but feeling, for the first time in years, like she belonged. Like she was seen, like she was home. From the crowd, a young woman pushed forward, early 20s, blonde hair, tear-streaked face. Mom? Sarah. Ellie's daughter was here. Sarah? How did you? The FBI brought me, Sarah said. Her voice was shaking. They said you were in danger, that I was in danger. They said, Mom, is it true? Everything that man just said, the military, combat medic, saving all those people? Ellie didn't know what to say. Sarah stepped forward, wrapped her arms around her mother. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Why didn't you tell me you were a hero? Ellie held her daughter, felt tears on her cheeks. She didn't know if they were hers or Sarah's. I didn't think it mattered, she said quietly. I thought it was over. I thought I was done being that person. Mom. Sarah pulled back, looked at her. You're still that person. You've always been that person. I just didn't know. She smiled through her tears. I'm so proud of you. And Eleanor Vaughn, who had saved 127 soldiers, who had held a man's heart in her hand and made it beat, who had performed surgery under countdown with a general's life in the balance, felt something break open inside her chest. Pride, not shame, not regret. Pride in who she was, in what she'd done, in the life she'd lived. She hugged her daughter again, held her tight. Around them, the hospital was coming back to life, people returning to work. The day starting again, but different now. Everything was different now. Epilogue, 6 months later. The lecture hall was packed, 80 medical students and residents. Fresh faces, eager, nervous. The future of medicine. Dr. Eleanor Vaughn stood at the podium. She'd cut her gray hair short. Professional. She wore a white coat now, clean, pressed. Her name embroidered on the chest in navy blue thread. Dr. Eleanor Vaughn, MD, Director of Emergency Medicine Training. On the screen behind her, a diagram of the human chest. Detailed. Technical. Tension pneumothorax, she said. Her voice carried clearly. No tremor now. No hesitation. Who can tell me the presenting symptoms? 20 hands shot up. You. Ellie pointed to a young woman in the front row. Bright eyes. Eager. Absent breath sounds on the affected side. tracheal deviation away from the affected side, distended jugular veins, hypotension, tachycardia. Good. And treatment? Immediate needle decompression, second intercostal space, midclavicular line, 14 or 16 gauge needle. Excellent. Now here's the real question. Ellie leaned forward. You're in a trauma situation. The attending physician has misdiagnosed the patient. You're just a resident, just a medical student. You're low on the hierarchy. The patient is dying. What do you do? Silence. The students looked at each other, uncertain, afraid of saying the wrong thing. Ellie smiled. You save the patient. Always. I don't care about hierarchy. I don't care about protocol. I care about one thing. Is the patient alive at the end? That's it. That's the only question that matters. She clicked to the next slide. A photo of a military medal. The Silver Star. This is what the Army gave me for saving lives under fire. You know what I value more? The fact that those soldiers went home to their families, that they lived. That's the real reward. Not medals, not recognition, not fancy titles. Lives saved. Families kept whole. That's what we do this for. She looked out at the sea of young faces. In this hospital, under my watch, we value competence over ego. We value patience over politics. We value doing what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's the standard. Meet it or find another profession. Clear? Yes, ma'am. The response was unified, enthusiastic. Ellie dismissed the class. They filed out, chattering excitedly. One student lingered, the young woman who'd answered the question. She approached the podium. Dr. Vaughn, can I ask you something? Of course. How do you stay calm in those situations, when everything is going wrong and people are dying and you're the only one who can save them? Ellie thought for a moment. You remember why you're there, she said. Not for yourself, for them, for the patient, for the person whose life is in your hands. You remember that they matter, that their family is waiting for them, that their story isn't over yet, and you do everything in your power to make sure they get to finish it. The student nodded, wiped her eyes. Thank you, ma'am. What's your name? Emily Morrison. Ellie smiled. Any relation to Commander Kincaid? He's my uncle. He told me I should study under you, said you were the best medic he'd ever seen. Your uncle saved my life once, Ellie said, by reminding me who I was. Tell him thank you for me. I will. Emily left. Ellie gathered her notes, checked her phone. One new message from Kincaid. Angel, mission in Yemen went sideways. 3 wounded. Navy surgeon on site says 1 won't make it. Needs a femoral bypass, but he's never done one under fire. Can you talk him through it? Call when you can. Reaper. Ellie smiled. She picked up her phone, dialed. It was answered on the first ring. This is Commander Stevens, ma'am. Thank God you called. Talk to me, Commander. What's the situation? As she walked to her office, guiding a Navy surgeon through a complex procedure 6,000 miles away, Ellie passed the new memorial in the lobby. Bronze plaque, 23 names, 23 veterans who worked at Mercy General. Her name was at the top. Dr. Eleanor Vaughn, U.S. Army Combat Medic, call sign Angel. Below it, an inscription, in honor of those who served in uniform and continue to serve in healing. Their courage under fire translates to courage under pressure. Their commitment to their brothers and sisters translates to commitment to their patients. They are warriors still. People stopped to read it, to take photos, to remember. Ellie's office was at the end of the hall. She unlocked it, stepped inside, framed certificates on the wall, her father's old stethoscope in a shadow box, a photo of her daughter taken last week when Sarah had visited for lunch. They had dinner together twice a week now, were rebuilding, healing. On her desk, a bronze sculpture, a gift from General Ashford, a pair of hands, one cupped beneath the other. Gentle, protective. The plaque beneath it read, "To Angel, who reminds us that the truest measure of a warrior is not how they fight, but who they save. With eternal gratitude, General William Ashford." Ellie touched it gently, smiled. Her phone buzzed again. A different number. Unknown. She answered, "Dr. Vaughn." "Dr. Vaughn, this is Senator Edward Peterson, Senator Richard Blackwood's colleague, former colleague. I wanted to thank you personally. You saved my son's life twice, once from dying, once from a doctor who didn't care enough to listen. Senator, I was just doing my job. You did more than your job, doctor. You gave my son a future. There's no way to repay that. But I want you to know, I'm personally ensuring that every veteran medical professional in this country gets the recognition and opportunities they deserve. Starting with funding for the memorial program you started at Mercy General, we're making it nationwide." Ellie sat down. "Thank you, Senator. That means more than you know. It's the least I can do. Thank you, Dr. Vaughn, for everything." The line went dead. Ellie sat back in her chair, looked around her office, at her life. 6 months ago, she'd been mopping floors, invisible, forgotten. Now she was training the next generation, saving lives from 6,000 miles away, making a difference. Her phone rang again. Kincaid. "Angel, Stevens says the bypass is holding. Patient is stable. You're a miracle worker." "Just doing my job, Reaper." "Ma'am, I have a question. JSOC is putting together a new program, training special operations medics to the highest possible standard. They want you to lead it. Full-time position, 6-figure salary, travel required. What do you think?" Ellie looked at her office, at Mercy General, at the life she'd built. "Let me think about it," she said. "Fair enough. But Angel, whatever you decide, know that you've already changed everything, for all of us. You showed us that the most dangerous person in any room isn't the one with the biggest gun. It's the one with the skills to keep everyone alive. Stay safe out there, Reaper. Always, Angel." She hung up, sat in silence for a moment, then she stood, walked to the window, looked out at Chicago, at the city she'd hidden in for 3 years, at the life she'd tried to leave behind. But you couldn't leave yourself behind. You couldn't hide from who you were. Dr. Eleanor Vaughn was a warrior, a healer, an angel. And she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from Sarah. "Coffee tomorrow? I want to hear more stories. About who you really are. Love you, Mom." Ellie smiled, typed back, "I'd love that. Love you too." She slipped her phone in her pocket, picked up her white coat. She had rounds to make. Students to teach. Lives to save. The night shift was over. Dr. Eleanor Vaughn was finally home.